Hey, how's everybody doing? Good, good. I'm glad you're here this morning. Special welcome if you're here for the first time. Man, I believe you're going to be blessed, and I'll say this: I hope you make a habit of being here on a regular basis. It's good for us to come together. You know, for those guys who don't know me, my name is Michael Gross. I'm lead pastor here of the Quarry, and I love this time of year. Because this is the time of year where there's a little bit of hope. Days are starting to get longer. Did you know that? I mean, you don't have to leave, right? Days are starting to get longer. There's hope that this thing called winter it comes to a close. Although winter has its own joy. And I know there are people here who love winter as well. I love this time of year because I get a little bit of time back. I don't get sucked into football. Starting today. It's a little sad. But I get 3 hours back every single weekend. And I love that this is the time of year that people start thinking about how to improve their lives and what that might look like. And they actually are open to God in their lives and what God can do in their life, for their life. And so I'm really excited about this series that we're in called Habits and what it can mean for us over the next year, right? I really believe this, that if we follow this closely and we adhere to some of these principles, that our lives will be radically different December 31st of 2020. So we're going to talk about habits, why habits are important, the difference between good habits and bad habits. We're going to talk about a thing called keystone habits, how to implement good habits, and equally as important, how to stop bad habits. Habits that are destroying us, that are destroying things that are precious to us, destroying relationships around us. Now, I'm not an expert in habits. I am on the journey just like a lot of you are on this journey. But I know a few people who are really good at this. And so we're going to glean some information from them. And I want to give credit where credit is due. Life Church is a church in Oklahoma City that is really helping us. They've given us kind of a template on this idea of habits, and we're going to follow that. But more than that, we're going to look closely at Scripture and what Scripture has to say about habits. So before we dig into this, if you would, just join me in praying, and we'll invite God into our time. And then we'll dig in together. So please, where you are, just bow your heads. Heavenly Father, God, it's good for us to gather. It's good for us to come together. It's a good habit for us to have. Lord, I don't know what's going on with our people today, with your people today, but you do. You know where our hearts are. You know where our minds are. And I just pray that you draw us in, that you comfort us, God, that you meet us during this time, and that you take us, God, to where you want us to go, and give us courage, God, to be open to follow you. We praise you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. All right, so habits. Why do habits matter? So I'm going to give you kind of the key point right up front today, and then we're gonna build around this, okay? But here's the key, the kind of major takeaway. See, habits matter because successful people do consistently what other people do occasionally. Successful people do consistently what other people do occasionally, and this is true. Right, in almost every area of your life, like in your spiritual life. If you want to get closer to God, there are certain disciplines that you live out consistently that bring us into the presence of God. If you look at someone who's financially successful, these are people who are doing consistently what others do occasionally. There's nothing magical about this. You look at health, you look at relationships, you look at parenting. People who are successful, we would call them successful in areas. They do consistently what most others do occasionally. And these small things build up over time, and they create significant change. Now we're gonna use Scripture here. We're going to go to the Bible and see what the Bible has to say about this. And if we look at the Bible, at who was successful, I don't think anyone would argue that if we look at this guy named Jesus, we would say, man, he was incredibly successful in his relationship with God. Right? I think there's other people, like the Apostle Paul. He's a guy who wrote most of what we call the New Testament, the second half of the Bible. We'd say, boy, this guy, he really was able to connect with God. He was successful. But what did they do? I think if you look at the life of Jesus, I don't think there was ever a time, when Jesus said, man, I don't know how I'm going to fit prayer into my day to day. I just don't know. I don't know how I'm gonna do that. I mean, that my disciples, these followers, are driving me crazy, and I don't think I can fit it in. I don't think that ever happened. Or you look at this guy by the name of Paul, right? He's similar. There's actually a verse in Acts 17:2, the verse in the Bible that says that he had this habit. And it actually uses that word, that he had a habit of going to the temple to share his faith with people who were far from God, who were living outside of God. He cared that much that he created this habit in his life. See, habits matter when we're talking about a preferred outcome. Because people who are really after that outcome, they do consistently what most everybody else does occasionally. I like what Sean Covey says. He says, our habits will make or break us. We become what we repeatedly do. And what's cool about this time of year is that for some reason people think that somewhere between like December 31st and January 1st, there's this glimmer of hope, like change can happen. And so we do things like make resolutions, and that's really good news. And I applaud that. I celebrate that. The good news is that people want change, that we're not satisfied with where we are. The bad news, and we talked about this last week, is that 80% of the people who make resolutions are done with resolutions by Valentine's Day. Why is that? What's wrong with you people? I mean, you know this, right? Last year you had a goal, you had a resolution, you had an idea, you had a thought, you said, man, this is my year. But in most cases we end up where the Apostle Paul ended up. And this should be hopeful, because we kind of put Paul up here on this pedestal like he's this incredible spiritual giant. But listen to what he wrote in his letter to this church in Rome. This is chapter 7. He said this. He said, I don't really understand. I'll summarize, right? I really don't understand myself. For I don't do what I want to do. I keep doing all this stuff that I don't want to do. Like I keep eating all this junk food. I don't know why I do it, right? And I keep overspending at Target. I go in there and I have good intentions, but then I go around the outside and I go to the clearance, and it just happens. I want to do what's right, he says, but I don't. Instead, I do what I hate. I want to do what's right. That's what's in me. That's my intent, he says. But I can't. I want to do what's good, but I don't. I don't want to do that which is wrong, but I do it anyway. And then he does what so many of us do. He connects his failure, he connects his shortcoming with his identity, with who he is. And he says, man, I'm a wretched person. What a horrible human being I am. And that's a summary. I'm a failure, right? I'm not disciplined. I'm not becoming more like Jesus. I'm a fake. And then he asks the question, and we see him shift his thinking. He says, who will free me from this life that's dominated by the sin in my life, that's dominated by death? And I want you to look at the answer to his question. Because I think we're asking that same question. I mean, how many of you have felt like Paul, where you said, man, I can't change. This is where I am. I keep trying. I'm a wretched man. I'm hopeless. I'm beaten. I'm defeated. And if we're honest, we're there. We've all been there. And so So look at what Paul says. How is this going to change? Who will free me? And he says, thanks be to God. It's all about Jesus, right? The answer is Jesus Christ. He's the one who can deliver. He's the one who can set us free. He's the source. He's our strength. We talked about this last week, John 15:5. He's this branch, and we're these vines that stay connected to Him. And when we stay connected to Him, something incredible happens over time. There's fruit that's produced. He's our strength. He's our healing. He's our hope. He makes all things new. It doesn't matter where you were, who you were, where you've been, what you've done. With Christ, He takes all things, and makes them new. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, if anyone comes underneath Jesus, surrenders their life to Jesus, you are a new creation. The old is gone, the new has come. And my prayer is that you experience all the life that He has for you, and that you adopt these disciplines, these small practices that lead to becoming God-honoring and God-pleasing, and that you experience life that's truly life. A person who does consistently what most others do occasionally. So why is it? Why is it that so many of us, right, we genuinely have good intentions. We really want to lose the weight. We really want to be more generous. We want to fulfill whatever resolution it is. But we fall. I mean, again and again and again. Well, I want to start here, and I want to give you 3 reasons why I think we struggle. The first is this, that we focus on the what, but we don't really understand the how. We focus on the what, but we don't really understand the how. We focus on an action that we want to perform, the thing that we want to accomplish, but we're not sure how to actually get there. I mean, if you think about this, almost everybody you know has similar goals. Like I've asked you, what in your life would you want to change? What in your life is really important to you? I think most of us would say, we'd say our health. Our health is really important to us. I don't know anybody who sets a resolution and says, man, I hope my cholesterol skyrockets this year. I'm kind of banking on that. I want to get dangerously close, to the edge. Nobody does that. Or I think most of us would say, finances are kind of an important deal to us. And I don't think anybody kind of sets the goal, man, I hope I double my debt this year. And I'm kind of hoping I pay like 25, 26% interest on that debt. We don't do that. We have similar goals, similar ideas, similar thoughts. Spiritually, I mean, if you're a disciple of Jesus, I think we'd say, man, I hope I go closer with God this year, or I want to make a difference in my life. I want to leave a mark. I want to leave a legacy. Most of us have similar hopes. We have similar dreams, similar goals. And some of you guys are making steps or making strides towards realizing that. And then there are others of us who are really kind of stagnant, or maybe even moving backwards. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, he says that winners and losers generally have the same goals. Successful people and unsuccessful people generally have the same goals. Right? People, when people consider marriage, for instance, I mean, what are people hoping for? Well, they're hoping for love. They're hoping for 2.5 children and a white picket fence. I mean, and we want this thing to last. Nobody goes into this thing and saying, all right, man, maybe 5 years. No, we want so much more than that. We want life, and we want love, and we want joy in the midst of that. We want to experience oneness with another person. It's a beautiful picture. So why does it end up so different so often? James Clear, the same guy, this is Atomic Habits, he teaches this idea, and I love it. He says this, that goals don't determine success. Hear this. Goals don't determine success, but systems determine success. Systems determine success. In fact, this is the quote. He says, "You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Now, if you didn't grow up going to church, you hear something like that and you go, "Oh, that makes so much sense. Man, I get that." Now, church people, we have a problem with this. If you grew up and you got religion in you, because you hear that and you go, "Whoa, that doesn't sound very spiritual." What's all this talk about systems? Where's God in all of this? And I just want to encourage you to hold on. Don't get your undies in a bunch around this one. All right? Because systems, disciplines are an incredibly spiritual idea. Right? There are many examples of people, as we look at Scripture, as we look at the Bible, people who were successful because they followed certain disciplines or a course of action that honored God. There's a guy in the Old Testament, that first half of the Bible, his name is Daniel. Some of you guys know who Daniel is. He's a great example, right? He's this prominent character, and he's prominent because of how he lived. A man who was known for having great faith. He stood out among the crowd. He was gifted. He was talented. He was unique and faithful. He's the guy, and I want you to think about this. He's the guy who, because he obeyed God, the leader of that area threw him into a lion pit. This is a real deal, right? And this is how you would torture somebody. This is how you would kill somebody. You would throw him into a pit of lions. And so Daniel, you are obeying your God. You're not obeying me. And so I'm gonna throw you into this lion pit. But he steps into this faithfully, knowing that God is going to be with him in the middle of this. How does anybody do that? For real. How does anybody do that? What was his system? What can we learn? So for years, and this is documented in the Old Testament. For years and years, Daniel made a habit. 3 times a day, he carved out time to be with God. 3 times a day, he spent time with God. Now, I've developed a habit in my life where every morning I wake up and I carve out time for God, and I'll spend time reading Scripture, and I'll spend time praying. And it's between a half hour and an hour and a half, usually, every morning, right? And I think, man, I've got this thing knocked out. And then I look at Daniel, and I'm like, 3 times? How does anybody do that? A lot of us think that we've made it if we're praying on our drive to and from work. Like that's what this looks like. But this guy, he changed his life to be focused around God. He had a system. He had a discipline. If you want to grow in your faith, if you want to be more faithful, you will not rise to the level of your goals. You will fall to the level of your systems. So what are your systems? See, here's the mistake that we tend to make. We tend to think, hey, I want to change. Like I want to lose 20 pounds by Easter. Or I want to be more organized. Or I want to finally pay off that one credit card that's been along so long. It's more like a pet to me than anything else. The problem is that we need to change the systems that created those results. If we fix what we do, how we live, the habits in our life, then the outcomes fix themselves. Does that make sense? You guys following with this today? Because this will change our lives, right? In the weeks to come, we're going to get really, really practical on this stuff. We're going to build some spiritual principles that will lead to systems that will change outcomes. And today we're just kind of we're just kind of laying a foundation. One of the reasons we don't succeed at this is that we tend to focus on the what, but we don't necessarily understand the how. And the second reason is that we give up way too quickly because we want results faster than they come. And so we just kind of throw in the towel. And you know how this works because the goal was, hey, I'm gonna work out. And you did, right? You worked out like that first week, you worked out 3 times, and it was awesome. And you're thinking, yes. And then you got on the scale, and it's like, I gained 2 pounds. It's like, obviously this isn't working. So I'm done with that. Or you decide, I want to become more spiritual, and so you start reading your Bible, or maybe some of you got on a YouVersion Bible reading plan, and you're consistent. And then you got in the car, maybe it was even this morning, and as you're driving to church, you lose your cool and you start yelling at your kids, and you're thinking, man, this isn't working. Right? Or you want to make a financial change, and so you say, you know what, I'm not going to buy coffee, and so for a whole month you don't buy coffee, and you save up $100, and you're thinking, man, I'm making change, but then you look at the balance, you say, oh, my student loan used to be $35,500, and now it's $35,400, and it's like nothing's changing. Nothing's changing, and we give up, and we wrongly conclude, and I want you to hear this, we wrongly conclude that these small decisions aren't gaining any kind of traction. We wrongly conclude that these God-honoring habits, these small faithful decisions, these small good positive actions aren't making significant difference. And then on the flip side of that, we kind of add this to the equation, that the not so good things, like that day when you decide to play video games for 3 hours and your wife is really not happy with you, but she doesn't leave you, right? It wasn't that bad. Or you skip church for a weekend and the world didn't fall apart. Nothing really tragic happens to you spiritually. Or you finally get to that box of chocolates, the box that you bought on sale at Costco, and you open it up and you down a third of it in one sitting. And nothing terrible happened. I mean, you had the runs that night, all right? We got that, but I mean, it was doable. See, we wrongly conclude that these small bad decisions don't impact our life very much. Right? And so the small good decisions, they're really not moving the needle, and the small bad decisions aren't really affecting us all that much either. But we're missing the truth. We're missing a really important truth. Listen, our life is the sum of all the decisions that we make. Our life is the sum total of all the decisions that we make. We are what we do, the result of many, many decisions along the way. They all matter, and they build up over the time. Life is cumulative. So you rarely wreck your life and end up in a really bad place. It's not about one decision that you made. See, what tends to happen is we make a small decision. We make a little compromise over here. We lie a little bit over here. We fudge a little bit over here. We bend the rules. We step over the line. And then one day you wake up and you ask the question, man, how did I get here? What happened? You didn't do it all at once. It was one decision, one small decision upon one small decision. And the opposite is true too. I mean, listen, if you're making decisions and it's consistent, I want you to hear this. They're stacking up, right? They're starting to add up. Your good decisions are not wasted. I mean, they're being stored up. You may not see it, but they're starting to be stored up. It's kind of like making Shopao. Anybody here know what Shopao is? Anybody? Oh, it's a gift from God. I just need to say that. So this is a little Filipino treat. It's this savory pork mixture that's wrapped in this sweet bun, and then you steam it, and it is a gift right from heaven. I mean, you open that thing up, and it's just like, oh, thank you, Jesus. But the key to really good Shopao. This is my family. We had a little Shopao night. That's kind of what we do. I want to do this more, actually. So good. I might have to take a break here. The key to really good Shopao is the dough. It's the bread. It's what surrounds this savory meat mixture. Any bakers in the crowd? Any baker? Anybody bake? Absolutely no one. Oh, few. Thank you. Good. Yes, you don't have to. You can. Gluten is okay. I mean, can we just say that out loud? Embrace it? Uh, so, so everybody, if you're a baker, then you know that the key ingredients to a good bread, I mean, it's water, and it's flour, and then it's yeast, right? And when you mix all of that together, right, the yeast, and this is important. Yeast is really just it's a single cell fungus, is what it is. Isn't that awesome? You eat that. Uh, um, but the yeast starts to break down some of the simple sugars that come from the flour, or starts to eat them, and then it exudes a byproduct. That's a nice way of saying it poops out carbon dioxide. All right, these little air bubbles, like bloop, 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 bloop. It's like it's underwater. Bloop, bloop, bloop. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Right, that's what's happening, and these little air bubbles are caught by the gluten, by the flour, and pretty soon, over time, all those air bubbles start to add up, but you don't know it at first. I mean, the first 5 minutes, nothing's happening. 10 minutes, nothing's happening. And then 30 minutes, you're looking at your dough and going, oh, did I do this wrong? Did I have the temperature wrong? We guess it, but just hold on, because you look an hour into this thing, and all those air bubbles start to add up, and pretty soon that dough starts to pop out of the bowl, and it's all over the place, and it is just pure awesomeness, right? Right? It adds up. It adds up. See, this is how change happens in your life too. This is how positive change happens, right? You add a God-honoring discipline, and then you add another one, right? And you add another one, and your faithfulness. I mean, you mess up every once in a while. None of us are perfect, and then there are days where we screw up, but you stay after this thing. You're generally faithful, and you don't see the results right away, and we fight the discouragement of that, but they start to add up, right? Your faithfulness is being stored up, and then there's some point, and I promise this, that there's a tipping point where you wake up one day and you go, there's change. There's change. I mean, you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, I'm in shape. How did that happen? But you know how that happened. Or suddenly you realize, hey, I'm out of debt, or my marriage is healthier, right? And nobody really knows. I mean, they look at you and they think you're an overnight success. They think that happened instantly because they have no idea of all the private sacrifices, of all the faithfulness, of all the consistency, of all the overcoming of self-doubt, all the failing and then restarting, the praying and seeking God and enduring criticism. They have no idea. They have no idea. It's the things that no one sees that bring the results. It's what's invisible. It's what's invisible, the things that people don't see, but you know. It was one decision after another, one built upon the other. And I like the way the Apostle Paul encourages us in this. He says, let us not become weary. Because this is what happens, right? We become weary. Don't become weary in doing good. Don't become weary in honoring God. Don't become weary in doing right things. Let's not become weary in holding to our budget. Let's not become weary in counting calories. Let's not become weary in waking up 30 minutes every single day so we have time to be with our God. Let's not become weary of going to the gym. Let's not become weary from praying and fasting before our God. Let's not become weary of doing the right thing, of honoring our spouse even when we don't feel respected in the moment. Let's not grow weary, because at the proper time, there it is, at the proper time. I mean, you may not see it coming. You may not feel it, but it's being stored up. And at the proper time, you will reap the harvest. And what that means is, when we talk about fruit, at the proper time, there will be fruit. There will be fruit. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. We fail when we focus on the what, when we don't understand the how. We fail when we don't see progress fast enough and we give up. And then the third thing, and this is a big problem, maybe our biggest problem, is our distorted identity sabotages potential, sabotages success. Let me explain that. Let me unpack that with you. See, we have an enemy. You might not see him, but he's there and he's around us all the time. And he tries to connect your failure with who you are, with your being, with your person. And you hear the voice. You failed, you came up short, so now you're a failure. Or you did something bad, and so now you are bad. This is what happened with Paul, with the Apostle Paul. I mean, he says, I'm trying to do what's right. I want to do what's right. But I'm this wretched man. I'm horrible. That's who I am. I'm this failure. And this kind of thing is all throughout Scripture. So there's hope for us. Right? When we look at some of the most effective people in the Bible, you see people who battled with identity issues. There's this guy in the Old Testament. A lot of you know the name. His name was Moses, right? And we see him, and you read about him, and he's this fantastic leader. But did you catch the beginning of the story? Because here's a guy who evidently didn't think he was meeting expectations. So when God comes to him, and says, "Hey, I have a job for you," his answer wasn't, "Oh man, yes, I'm your guy." His answer was, "I'm not your guy. I'm not very good, actually. I think I'm a failure. I'm not a very good public speaker. I'm not a good leader. You should find somebody else." He was saying no to his potential. He was saying no to what God had for him. Too often, we do that same kind of thing. We fail. You fail. All right? I fail. I come up short. And then I connect it to who I am. This is just the way I am. I'm really never going to change. And we've always known, I kind of have this addictive personality, and so, why even fight this thing anymore? Why don't I just embrace it? Just have one more drink, eat one more donut, whatever it is. Or I'm really not good with money. I've never been good with money, and so I'm just not even going to pay attention to it. Let's go shopping. I'm not very disciplined. I'm not very organized. I'm really not very good in relationships. I just can't seem to really move forward or get anything done. It becomes an identity. And here's what happens. See, an unhealthy identity creates unwise habits. Unhealthy identity creates unwise habits, and those unwise habits, they reinforce our unhealthy identity. It becomes this cycle, right? We don't see ourselves as godly, and so we live in a way that's really not godly. And therefore, we reinforce the identity that I'm not godly. And then I do things that aren't godly. And then it reinforces this idea that I'm not godly. And this cycle just takes us down into a pit. So that's why this year I want to start this change process a little differently. I want to think about it differently. I want you to think about this with me differently. What I'm going to ask you to do, and I want to ask you to do this, not by yourself, not in isolation. This is one of the reasons we fail. But I want you to do this in community. I want you to do this with people who you know and who know you. If you're an access group, this is something you do in an access group. Those are our biblical communities, right? And if you're not in an access group, this might be one small habit that you create this year that has potential to totally change your life. Right? Do this with people who will walk in this with you. Right? And here's what I'm asking you to do. Is before you start with do goals, I want you to create who goals. Before you start with do goals, I want you to create who goals. See, do goals. These are the things that you want to do. That's the I want to lose 20 pounds by Easter goal, right? Before you set those goals, I want you to set who goals. Right? And the question is, who do you want to become? Who do you want to become? Who are you because of Christ? I mean, who is it when people describe you? This is the question. When people describe you, who do you want them to describe? You might say something like, "Man, I want to I want to be a man of God, or I want to be a woman of God. I want to be a loving husband. I want to be a loving wife. That's who I want to be. And those are great goals. Those are great who goals. Right? I want to be generous. Right? That's who I want to be. That's a great who goal. Or I want to be a voice piece for God. Right? I want to be able to proclaim him in my workplace and in school. I want to be a light. That's a great who goal. Who do you want to become? Who do you want to become? See, here's what happens. Identity shapes actions. Identity shapes actions. When we understand who we are, who we want to be, it shapes how we act. And we saw this played out. I was kind of bummed that we played a Saturday game yesterday because last Sunday, I wanted to celebrate a little bit of the New Orleans Saints game. Just a little bit with y'all, because we didn't get to do that because it was like after church. But I don't know if you caught the interview that Kirk Cousins had with Chris Meyer following the New Orleans game. It's pretty phenomenal, and it's an example of understanding who you are. Right? So we know that Cousins is taking all kinds of flack. Like he's not a big-time quarterback. He can't make the big win. Can't win in the playoffs. Right? He can't win against teams that win. He can't win on Monday nights. And it becomes a weight. It has the potential to become an identity. Right? And following that game, Myers said this. He said, I know you're deep in your own faith, and I know you try to handle it like a professional, but you can't block out all the outside noise. And he's referring to all these accusations about how he performs. And here's what Cousins said. He said, the quarterback carries weight, and that comes with the job. Like you said, my faith is important to me. It's the foundation of my life. And this wasn't a rehearsed speech, right? This just came out. This just came out of him. He said, ultimately, that's where I gain my peace and strength. Win or lose today, God is still on the throne, and I take comfort in that. See, he knows who he is. He knows he's a child of the Most High God. And it doesn't matter what happens in the game. It doesn't change my identity. And so he's able to go out in the midst of all this criticism and just do his best and lay it all out there. And maybe they win and maybe they don't. That's not who he is. Cousins could have caved to the pressure. He could have caved to past failure. He could have made failure his identity, but he didn't. His identity is tied to the greatness of God, and that identity shapes action. Now you might say, hey, that's great for Kirk Cousins. You know, it's great for you, Michael, but you don't understand. This is who I am, and I can't change. It's just not going to change. But I want to remind you of what God said through the Apostle Paul, and this is this letter to the Romans again. He says this in chapter 6. He says, we know this, that our old sinful selves were crucified with Christ. Our old sinful selves, all that pattern of sin, that stuff that we did, that went up on the cross with Jesus. That he died for that, so that sin might lose its power in my life. Sin doesn't have power over me anymore. Jesus took that on. This is what being new is all about. We are no longer slaves to our past. We are no longer slaves to sin. For when we died with Christ, we were set free from the power of sin. When we die, and this is what, as if you're a Jesus follower, this is what happens. We lay down our past, and we just lay it down. We say, that's not who I am anymore. That's not who I am. That's not who you are. You are free. You are new. You've become slaves not to sin, but slaves to righteousness. When you know who you are, you'll know what to do. Who are you? Who are you in Christ? Well, the Bible says that you are redeemed, that you're made new, that you are righteous in Christ, that you're more than a conqueror, that you're an overcomer, that you're a blessed child of the Most High who can do all things, not by his own power, but through the strength of Christ, right? We can lament, oh, what a miserable person I am, what a wretch I am, who can deliver me from this? But now we know who that is. It's thanks be to God. It's Jesus Christ our Lord who sets us free. And our identity in that, it shapes our actions. When you know who you are, you know what to do. You know what to do. We talked about this negative spiral. Let me talk to you about a positive spiral. A spiral that lifts us up. See, healthy identity, what does it do? It creates positive habits. Now I'm a person who tithes. I'm a person who fasts. I'm a person who's generous. I'm a person who prays. I'm a person who reads God's words. I eat discipline. I work out. I create these healthy habits. And these positive actions, now they reinforce my identity even more. And so I'm a disciplined child of God. I'm a contributor. I'm an ambassador of Christ. I'm one who makes a difference in this world. I'm a change agent. Who do you want to become? See, before the do, answer the who. Who do you want to become? So I'm 52 years young. Hard to believe, I know. And God willing, I'm a little over halfway home. And I'm asking the question, who do I want to be when I'm 70? 20 years ago, I couldn't even fathom that question. You know what? A year ago, I couldn't fathom that question. But I'm asking the question, who do I want to be when I'm 70? And this is who I want to be. And I want to be someone who is faithful and gives his whole life to God, all of me to God. I want to be a loving and caring husband. I want to be a wonderful papa and an even better grandpa. I want to be a devoted pastor to the church that he loves. I want to be a strong leader who sees the very best in people and helps people do more for the glory of God than they can do on their own. I want to be filled with joy. And as an answer to prayer, this is my last week, right? What's the characteristic of the fruit? I want to be a person of peace, filled with the peace of God. I want to be rich in friendships and experience and generosity. Who do you want to be? Who do you want to be? See, when you know who you are, you'll know what to do. No one action is going to change. It's going to change you. But consistent actions over time change who we are. They change our identity. We become people who experience life to the full, because we consistently do what others do occasionally. Who do you want to be? Ultimately, our goal is Jesus. It's Jesus. I want to be like Jesus. It's our call. For me to live is Christ. To die is gain. To the world, that sounds like foolishness. But that's where we find life. Because if I'm like him, then I'm full of love, and I'm full of grace, and I'm full of truth, and I reflect the love of God back to this world. I want to be like Jesus. Because when you know who you are, then you'll know what to do. Let's pray together.